Yes. We have a minute, a little less than a minute to go. So please make sure your name is showing in your Zoom window and mute your session. It is now 4 o'clock. Again, this is the enrichment session for parliamentary procedures. Let me begin with a few questions. Do you find Robert's rules confusing? Would you like to feel confident in what to do when a meeting doesn't get anything accomplished? Are you ready to understand the simple basic rules that will make you a better leader? If you answer yes to any of these questions, then you're in the right place. Beth has been a professional speaker and trainer for 20 years. She coaches TEDx presenters and currently works with emerging speakers to get them started in the right direction to save them time and money. Beth also loves action movies and crime shows, grooming her horses, and gourmet cooking. Helping us today to keep this guy, Robert, under control. Please join me in welcoming speaker, author, and coach, distinguished Toastmaster, Beth Ramsey.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. Yay. That's why Cynthia is like my buddy. We go around. She's going to introduce me no matter where I go. Thank you, Miss Cynthia. Appreciate it. All right, you guys, I'm really excited about this topic because so many people don't understand it. And once you kind of get it, it works better. It's going to be a little awkward, but we're going to work on it. I'm just going to go basics, but I'll tell you why I got really interested in this. Years ago, I was volunteering in a women's organization, and there was a 3-day statewide conference where it was a political action, and it had 3 different breakouts. So one, I was a delegate for, what was it, for children, and there was a delegate for education, delegate for health and families, things like that. And we would work for 2 days with all the people in the state within our topic. And then on the 3rd day, we would all come together and discuss and take a vote on what issues we would go and talk to the legislators in Tallahassee and in DC about that we wanted them to work on. The first time I did that, when it came that 3rd day, we were all in the room. There were about 400 of us. And the lady on the stage who was trying to get this vote going, clearly, A, did not understand how to run a vote, and B, she allowed chaos and pandemonium because there was a woman that was across the aisle and about 3 rows up from me in this room of 400 who was absolutely running the meeting from her seat. I couldn't believe it. That's where the chaos came. And when you have someone running a vote and does not understand basic parliamentary procedure, it was a nightmare. And I vowed right then and there, because I didn't know she was right with the things she was saying from her chair. Nobody in that room knew if she was correct in what she was saying and how she was trying to run it. So in that room, who held the power? The power was held by the woman in that chair. And I vowed to myself that that will never happen to me again, that I will learn the basics of Robert's rules so that when I go and A, run meetings, or B, be in meetings, I'll know what is correct and how it's done. So no woman in a chair across the aisle is ever going to intimidate me again. So that's what I want to share with you. The whole premise behind Robert's Rules of Order is to run an effective meeting where everyone gets their voice heard. And it also sets it up a situation where one person cannot control the body. And the body is the assembly, everyone in the room. Okay, so that's the whole point. And when you hear that and get that, then what I'm about to share with you will make sense. All right, here we go. Let me share some slides here. And I want you to ooh and ah over all my beautiful slides. So who this guy Robert is anyway, is a gentleman who used to travel around, and this was way back, and he saw that when he went to different meetings, the meetings were not run the same. Some were good, some were bad, and what he noticed is there was just not a lot of things getting done. So he developed this Robert's Rules of Order so that everyone is on the same playing field on how to run a meeting. So that's who this guy Robert is. And let's see, come on now, turn, go, go. There you go. All right. So I already shared with you why I am bothering you with this stuff is because I don't want you to get caught ever being in a situation the way I was the first time going, I don't know what this lady's doing from the chair, but the whole place was in chaos. You be the one in control. The one who knows how to run the meeting is the one in control. And that doesn't necessarily mean the person at the front of the room. Okay, so I want you to learn just the basic stuff. I'm not going to go into all the different like privileged stuff. We're not going to that. What I'm going to do is just share with you what we usually run into on an average basis of the average club meeting. I want you to be a champion like that one and not a little chump like that one. Okay, so we're not going to do that. We want that, not that. All right. All I'm going to do is share with you what's in this box. We're going to learn how to make a proper motion, how to make a proper amendment, and then how you get rid of those. Well, so how do I know which one I do first? How do I conduct that? And then when you need a second and when you don't. And then just 3 quick little motions that I'm sure you've heard. Point of order, request for information, I call the question. These are things that I'm sure you have heard at some point, somewhere. So that's all we're going to cover. And I promise you, you'll feel better in about half an hour. Here we go. All right. When you make a proper motion, you are bringing an idea before everybody. And you don't motion. I hear people, well, I motion that. No. You want to say you always put your name in. I, Beth Ramsey, move that, and then I'll tell you what I want. So that's it. You know, my name, move that, and what it is that I want. Any questions? Anybody with a question on that? No? Okay. All right. Then the next thing, if it's coming from a committee, same format. Whatever the committee name is, moves that. What do you want? Okay, so it's the finance committee moves that. All Toastmasters in our club be given laptop computers. There you go. So that's all that one is. So everybody okay on that so far? It's just name, what do you want? Committee, what do you want?
So Beth, with that, what you want is more or less a statement versus a question?
Yes, you want to, it's a statement of, and I actually at the end, I have some things for us to practice so we can get used to it because the language is sometimes a little awkward. You know, I move that. It's just kind of interesting. You know, that's not something we use every day in that way, but that's it. Yep, that is it. What is it that you want? Okay, now let's say that the finance committee has moved that we all get laptops. Yay, that'd be really cool, right? If our club gave us all laptops. Now, what if somebody says, well, I don't know if that's a great idea. What if we buy laptops for only the club officers to use? Okay, so what is the best way that they would get that point across in the meeting? So it would be, for instance, it could be, I, Beth Ramsey, move to amend the motion by, what do I want? right? I could say striking laptops for all club members and insert laptops for officers. Does that make sense? Does everybody get? So it's just, what are you taking out and what do you want to see happen? You know, you could insert, delete. That's how you get across to everybody what you're wanting to change, because you don't know that laptops for everybody in the club makes any sense. Okay? All right. If I don't hear anything, I'm going to keep going. So let me know. Okay, that's one of my horses, by the way, right there. I just want y'all to like doing off. All right. So what if somebody says, well, I don't think everybody should have one, and I don't think all the officers should have one. I think just the president and the secretary should have one. So what would that look like? I, Beth Ramsey, move to amend the amendment to read, only the club president and club secretary get laptops. So you see how specific, hopefully everybody, do you see how more specific and more honed in we're getting? So everybody kind of understands what's going on. Now I will share with you, a lot of times about this time, if you've got amendments to amendments and things like that going, this is where there's a lot of side talking and a lot of conversation going on. So if you are running a meeting, you need to make sure that you stop everybody side talking, because when it comes time to vote on the amendment to the amendment, people will not know what they're voting on. So as the chairperson, if you are running this meeting, you will always restate what is on the floor. So at this point, we would say the amendment to the amendment on the floor right now is that only the club president and the club secretary will receive laptops. Okay, is everybody getting, unmute and let me tell you, let me hear how you're doing. Everybody okay with me? Everybody all right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Sorry, I have a question. Sorry, Beth.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean to take over your,
No, you're
your
fine.
thing, but is it possible to place in chat or the first motion, then the amendment? It may be too much, but it's just a request.
Actually, that would be good. And that's
Thank
why
you.
it's really important that we are clear. That's why the presiding officer, the parliamentarian, and the secretary need to be real clear on what the motions are. And that's why when there's all this side talking and people talking and shouting out and things like that, they can't do that very well. So Cynthia, would you type that in, that the original motion was, I, Beth Ramsey, move that all club members receive a laptop. So that, let's say that's the original motion. Then somebody said, no, I don't like that idea. I think only the officers. So it could be, I, Barbara Amato, amend that motion that only the club officers get laptops. And then Chiquetta, you could say, well, I think only the club president and club secretary. So that's the amendment to the original motion. So that's why it's real important that we get the wording right so we know what we're talking about. And as the person running the meeting, you've got to maintain control over the body and the assembly, because they will get out of hand. And if I've got time, I'll share with you one of the things that happened when I was parliamentarian for our district at a business council where chaos just broke out. So I'll tell you about that. All right. So everybody got that? Is that better?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Now, you can only have one thing you're considering at a time. Do you remember the old windows where we would click on something and a window would come up, and then you click on something else and a window would come up, and then you click on something else and a window would come up? Y'all remember that? Okay, if you're over 30, you'll remember that. Okay, The way that you do this is you handle it, you're closing windows. So if you had the amendment to the amendment, you would discuss that and vote on that. Either yes, we want only the president and the secretary. And if we say yes, then that's the amended motion. If we say no, if that gets voted down, that you really want all the officers, then you would vote that one down. Then that's disposed of. That window's closed. So now what you have is you have the amendment of the club officers. Okay, is everybody with me? Because the original motion was everybody. The first amendment was only the club officers. So then that's what you're going to discuss and vote on. Does that make sense? So either you will vote, yes, I agree that all the club officers should have laptops, or you're going to say, no, I don't think they should have laptops. Everybody's got their own flipping laptop, bring it, right? So then you would either vote that up or down. Yes, it'll pass, no, it won't. Okay, if it passes, then it changes the original motion to where it reads that all club officers get laptops. Now, if it's voted down, then it goes back to the original motion of everybody in the club gets laptops. Does that help? Does that make sense? So you've got to make sure that you dispose of whatever the last one is, and you just go back and forth. Now, a common question that I get is, well, Beth, how many amendments can you make? Well, there's no limit. You can make amendments all day long, but that's not, if there are a lot of amendments, I will tell you this, if somebody made a motion and there's, 2 or 3 or 4 amendments to it, that means that original motion probably was not very strong or very well thought out, that perhaps it needs to go back to committee or it needs to have further research. So that's something that can happen as well. Okay, does everybody have this one? It's got to be dealt with in reverse order. Okay. Now, that's it. That's motions, amendments, and amendments to amendments. That's it. Do you feel better? A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's nothing else. That's it. So that's how you make a motion. I move that. Okay. And let me share with you when you need a second and when you don't. Remember when I shared with you the whole point behind Robert's rules is so that every voice is heard. Okay, every voice is heard. So when if one person makes a motion in the middle of a meeting, there has to be a second, because it could, and I have seen before where a motion is made and no one seconds it. So what do you think happens to it? What happens to it?
It dies.
It dies. So that means that there is nobody else in that whole assembly who agrees with that motion to come forward. I've seen that happen. I've also seen it where somebody will second a motion. They don't agree with it, but they do want it to come forward for discussion. Okay, so that's okay. But if one person makes a motion, there must be a second. What about a committee? A committee that has, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 people on it. If it says the rules committee moves that, do they need a second?
No.
Why not?
Because it came from a committee.
There you go. One person didn't make this. Okay, so that's one of those things, just keep in mind, because I've been so many times where there's been a committee that is coming forward with a motion and all the chirpy birds, I second. That's like, well, okay. Don't be a chirpy bird. If it comes from one person, it needs a second. If it comes from a committee, that's why you got to listen to who is making the motion. Because one person will stand up and say, the finance committee. the rules committee, the special events committee. How do you second? How you second is you just say that I second. And usually, what depends on if your group, whatever group it is, keeps minutes of who seconds. Sometimes the organization does not. Some organizations do. They want a record of who seconded. I don't know personally, I don't know that that's all that important. Just that it was seconded is important. But some people will just say, well, I'm Beth Ramsey, I second. So you could do it that way, but that's all you do. You don't have to wait to be recognized for a second. That just means, yes, we want this motion to be discussed. And a lot of times I have also seen in organizations where there's great brainstorming going on. And then before you know it, you're kind of having discussions on all these things. But you know how if you started over here at topic 1 and all the discussions that keep coming on, and now before you know it, you're over on topic 5 and you didn't do anything with the original thought? That's where it's important to say, okay, do we need to have a motion? Because it keeps everybody straight. If you want business to be transacted, it needs to be in a motion where we all know what we're talking about. And technically a motion should happen before discussion. But a lot of times it's the other way around. So I know when I have presided in meetings and things where there's some great brainstorming going on and it seems like everybody's kind of hovering around an idea, then I will say this. I will say, do I hear a motion? And I wait for somebody to make the motion so that we're focused and we can vote on business and move forward. If you've ever been in a meeting where the discussion goes on for flippin' ever and nothing business gets done, that's why. So if as a presiding officer, or if somebody says, well, I'll go ahead and make the motion, because that's the effort of just moving the business forward. Okay, all good. All right, so let's talk about the 3 motions you'll probably hear. Point of order. None of these need to be recognized, so it's one of those things you can interrupt. You just point of order, and what that means usually is there's a procedural problem. Maybe somebody is going off the agenda. And again, we've approved an agenda. We have an agenda in front of me, in front of all of us. This is what we are planning on doing. And if somebody's going off way off over here into the weeds, then, point of order, we have an agenda and we need to stick to it. And the chairperson, whoever's presiding, will say, yes, you are correct. Let's get back on topic. Okay, that's what they should say. All right, so it's just a way of getting us back on proper procedure, whatever that is. Okay, so you'll hear that one a lot. The other one you'll hear is point of information or point, but it's been kind of changed now to request for information. That's what's one of the updated recent Robert's rules. They updated it to say request, which makes better sense, actually. Request for information. Let's go back to our laptop scenario. Let's just say that it looks like there's going to be laptops for all of the officers. Well, what's something that you would want to know if you're in a club and you have club dues and you're paying TI, and all of a sudden somebody says, I think we need to buy laptops for all the officers? What was something that you would want to know?
What's the financial impact?
Do we have the money? So that would be where you could say, oh, wait, request for information. Because what that means is, I just want to know, do we have the budget for this? Because if we don't, we're wasting an awful lot of time, right? So that's a request for information is always a good one. That's always a good one. All right, now this one, okay, everybody pay attention. This is where chaos reigned at a business council. Call the question. What that means basically is I personally am sick and tired of all this back and forth debate. I'm ready to vote on this bad boy, and I don't want to hear any more discussion about it. So I could stand up and just say, you know, I, Beth Ramsey, I'll call the question. Now, does that need a second? Barbara, if y'all can unmute, we don't have enough, we only have a few people, so y'all can unmute, talk to me.
Yes,
Yes,
because it's one
needs a
person,
second.
Yes, it needs a second. Why?
because it's one person.
Because it's one person, and call the question ends debate. What happens if 20 other people, there's 21 people in the room, I'm tired of hearing you guys. I want to move on to the vote. Y'all are not done discussing. Remember Robert's rules. The point is everyone gets their voice heard, and not one person can run the assembly. Okay, so this is one where it gets misused and misunderstood. Yes, a call to question is ending debate, and that has to have a second, and that has to be voted on. Let me tell you where chaos reigned at the District 84 Business Council a few years ago. I was the parliamentarian to a district director who was not comfortable with Robert's rules. She didn't understand it. It scared the heck out of her. And I would work with her on the agenda and how we would do deck meetings and things always ahead of time. We would have long conversations and we'd go through the agenda and I would tell her, this is what you're going to say. And I think she was just so freaked out that she would never like calm down enough to kind of get it. It was a business council at a conference. Remember back when you used to do business councils at conference? As pre-COVID. And there were probably, if I had to guess, I'd probably say at least 100 people in the assembly, or more than that actually, because we had about 200 clubs. And she was scared to death that there was a motion that had been made on the floor. It had been debated back and forth, and then somebody called the question. Well, she didn't know what to do. And I whispered to her, because that's my job as parliamentarian. My job is to cover the behind of the presiding officer. And so I whispered to her, this has to be seconded and it needs a vote. And so she did that. And people who did not understand the proper use just flipped out, and they were screaming and yelling and chaos. And I don't know if anybody was at that business council, but I had people with they were doing this. Well, it says right here, it says right here. And it's like, that's wrong. Now I will stake the lives of all of my horses on the fact that call the question requires a second and it has to be voted on. And so it's like, but luckily we had a professional parliamentarian in the audience who came up to me afterwards and said, you were right. I said, I know I was right. So what happened was this district director asked me to come up and explain. And I had to like calm the waters, explain how it works. And then she could proceed with the order, with the call the question. Now, it turns out that, yes, everybody was done with debating and the motion failed when it came to vote. But that's why it's important to know when somebody calls the question, the point is to end debate. Do you want to end debate or do you want to continue debate? That's up to you. Okay, everybody with me? That's an important one. That gets screwed up all the time because a lot of people think that when you call the question, you move immediately to the motion. That's incorrect. Yeah,
I have a
Barbara?
question. So let's say you call the question, nobody seconds it. Is it proper or expected for someone to say, is there a second or no?
Yes, actually, presiding officer. Usually you don't have to because the chirpy birds will jump up and second everything. Usually you don't have to. But yes, if you don't hear one, then the presiding officer should say, do I hear a second? Because you want to give everybody the opportunity to be heard. And if nobody says anything, but usually there's somebody who always seconds because they don't understand the concept of if you don't say anything, then it dies. They don't understand that. So
Somebody's best friend and they're gonna second.
yeah, exactly. You know, oh, I like Barbara. I'll just second anything she says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Very good. Let me go back to this. All right. Almost done. Almost done. I see questions. I'll get questions in just a second. All right. Here we go. So that is I call the question. That's what that means. And I want y'all to see my horse coming in my kitchen.
I've seen him.
Yes. He was a nightmare. Anyway. All right.
You wanted
practice.
coffee, it looks like.
No, I gave him carrots outside and he said 3 carrots were woefully insufficient. So he followed me across the backyard, across the pool deck and into my freaking kitchen. It's like, get out. Anyway, all right, practice time. Who wants to try this? You want to require anyone who runs for an office or position to have been a Toastmaster for at least 3 years. So how would that sound? Who wants to, Iona, you want to do it?
Yes, if I
Go.
may.
Yes.
I, Iona Rodericks, move that anyone who runs for an officer position must have been a Toastmaster for at least 3 years.
Boom. And that's how we do that. Does that need a second?
Yes.
Yes. Why does it need a second?
It's a motion.
It came
Because
from
it's
one
an
person.
individual making the motion.
That's right. And the way I learned that is I had a wonderful presiding officer. I was on a board one time and I didn't know, I was kind of learning this stuff. And what she would do is she would say, when somebody would make a motion, she would say, because it came from one person, it requires a second. And she would just say it. Or she would say, it comes from a committee, it does not need a second. And she would just say it really quick so that nobody embarrassed themselves. And that's how I learned it because I kept hearing it over and over and over and over. So do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you. All right, Aaron seconds. And so this is where we would talk, we would have discussion. Now, what you should do is always allow the person who made the motion to talk first. Because a lot of times they'll give a rationale. Well, I think it's important because. And they'll give their reason for doing that. And then you can go from there. Good job. Good job, you guys. All right, here's another one. Who wants to do this one?
I'll do it.
All right, Barbara.
The executive committee moves that we will impose a $2 monthly club dues surcharge beginning January 1st.
All right. Do we need a second?
No,
Why?
No.
it's a
Committees
comment.
don't require a second.
Boom. There you go. All right. Then I would, if I were presiding, I would say, well, Barbara, could you give me the committee's rationale as to why you want that? And it
Yes,
could-
I think blah, blah, blah.
That's it. All right. And then we discuss back and forth, go from there. All right. Let's do another one. I think this is the last one. Who wants to take this one? Shocking, I know. I was just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Who wants to take that one?
I can try
All right.
as a 1 month member.
Yay.
Yay
Go.
for you.
The speech contest committee moved to charge attendees $5 to come.
Excellent. Does Aram need a second?
Yes. No. It's
Why?
It's a committee.
Aha.
Yeah.
Now, what if he said, Aram, do it again, only that you're moving it?
I moved to charge attendees $5 to come for the speech
Need it?
contest.
Need a
Right.
second?
Yes.
Because only
Yes.
Aram did it.
One
So
person.
do y'all get it?
Mhm.
Isn't this exciting? It's so exciting. All right, this is my last slide. And I just want everybody to realize Secretariat, best racehorse ever, still holds
Mhm.
all the track records of the Triple Crown. Thank you very much, since 1973. Love that
Yes.
horse. All right, now, let's see. I had some questions. Let's see, questions. How do you second? We talked about that. I second. I mean, you shout it out. And sometimes when you have a large assembly, 3 or 4 people might say it at the same time. I'm sure you've probably heard that. I move to second. No, you don't need to say that. You just, a second like that. Can my committee ask for it? If so, do they need seconding? Yeah, okay, now we talked about that. Committees
That
do
is
not need a
for-
second.
That was for call the question specifically.
Oh, no, that would be a person. I mean, because you don't have, the committees don't do that. That would be a person wanting to end debate. I see a question, Barbara?
Okay.
Oh, Iona,
Um,
come with you.
Yeah.
Iona, go ahead. I'm sorry, Barbara. I didn't see Iona.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So, Beth, when we call the question, it means to end the debate.
Yes, ma'am.
It does not mean that the chair has to restate the motion. Is that correct? Just end debate, everyone stop
End
talking.
debate on that motion, correct.
Thank you.
Now, it's always good form that, especially if there's been a few minute debate that goes back and forth, it's always good form to make sure that the chair restates the motion. It's very helpful, especially if there's a large group of people, because how many times have you all done this? Raise your hand if you've done this. There's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of side talk, there's been a couple things going on, and when it's time to vote, you don't know when the heck. It's like, I don't know what we're voting on. How many times have
Yeah.
you said, you look at your neighbor and go, what are we voting on? Okay, so the chair should restate it, and that's why you've got to be real clear what is the business before the body, the assembly. Yeah, and it's intimidating at first. It's very scary, but I tell you what, when you know this stuff and you can run a meeting, people will sing your graces because they don't waste their time. Barbara.
Sometimes at some meetings, I know I've heard a specific request to give your name and who you're with. If we're at a meeting, it would be, I'm Barbara Amato, president of Claremont Toastmasters. That way they know if we're in a combined meeting that I have the right to make that movement, that I am a voting member versus just someone in the audience.
Also, it's for the secretary.
Is it required or preferred?
It's preferred because the secretary has to take minutes.
Yep.
And they need
okay.
to know who made the motion. And especially,
thank you.
I know in Toastmasters, we will do that, state your club name, your name, club name, so that they have it for record.
Okay, thank you.
And besides that, they want to know if Claremont is being trouble or not. Okay, anyway.
Always.
All right, Rick.
Yes, thank you, Beth. And I think before we get led down the garden path, on call the question, you need a 2/3 affirmative majority, not just a majority.
Just simple majority. Simple
2/3
majority is
No
half
such
plus
thing
one.
as a simple majority. Sorry,
What?
So,
just majority.
What's
2/3
the
need
difference?
to call the
yes,
question.
2/3 to call the question, because that's ending debate. That's a really important. That's a right for us to all talk and debate and discuss and things like that. So anytime something comes along that's going to limit a right. Yeah. Thank you, Rick.
I have a question, sorry.
All right, Iona.
So, Beth, if you call the question and does the chair then restate the motion and then go for a vote for a simple majority? They have to call a vote.
Well, that's what a motion is. It's a call for a vote. So it would also depend. So let's just say we're going to vote on the club officers having laptops. We've had our debate. We've talked about it. And then I would say, okay, what I would do, probably say something like, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of all officers receiving laptops, say aye. People would say aye. And then I would say, those opposed, say nay. Some people might go, I don't like that. And then I always like it when we have, I always ask for abstentions. And I don't like it when I'm not asked for abstentions. So, because sometimes I have been in a situation before where I'm really kind of, I don't really agree with it, but I'm not really against it. Now, an abstention will count against. It doesn't count in the voted for column.
Oh,
okay. So, when you abstain, you're kind of helping the noes is what happens. So,
is it counted as a no?
It's counted as a
And
no,
it's-
because you're looking for yeses. Yeah. But sometimes, you know, and when you abstain to something, it's kind of more of a statement. You know, you're trying to make a statement there, really, depending on what it is. I can't think of, I know I've done an abstention on something before where I was making a point. But it passed anyway. I don't remember what it was, but it passed anyway. Anyway,
You
all
have
right.
10 minutes, Beth.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Aram, you had a question.
A quick question. I kind of have trouble with the branching of the amendment. So let's say you have a motion, somebody moved to make a motion and somebody amended that,
Mhm,
and somebody wants to amend the amended motion.
mhm.
In that case, if you amend that and let's say it is accepted, do you still call it an amendment and you amend the amendment, or is the second it's accepted, now we revert back and call it a motion and you amend the motion?
Yeah, it's kind of going backwards. So if the motion is made and somebody didn't like, they liked it. Okay, I'll give you an example. We just had a deck meeting. And a deck meeting is the District Executive Council, and I know you're pretty new to us, so let me share with you. It's made up of area directors, division directors, and the voting top officers. Okay, so we do the business side of everything, and then it goes to the Business Council in, I believe it's October, is when September or October. Anyway, but at DEC, we discussed on, oh, y'all are going to get a preview here. Y'all might not know this. We discussed whether we're going to have contests online only, hybrid, or in person only. So we discussed that. There was a motion on the floor. The motion was from, and now this doesn't count clubs, from area contests forward, because clubs can do whatever they want. Area contests forward. Actually, it started out as area contests only, because we have area, then we have division, and then we have district. So it started out as area, and I believe the motion was that we will only have, that we will have hybrid only at areas. Actually, I take that back. Online only at areas. Then somebody amended that to say hybrid only at areas. And then somebody amended that, an amendment to that amendment saying, well, why don't we do this for, you know, if you're going to do online and you're going to do hybrid, why don't we just do hybrid? So we voted, okay, let's just do hybrid only. So it kind of, we went backwards. So instead of doing, we're going to take a vote on online only, and that was going to be voted down. Why are we wasting that kind of time? You see, so it's either online or hybrid. Why don't we just do that? Right? So it was an interesting thing. So as a preview, what's coming to Business Council, everybody, is hybrid, all contests area forward to district, and the district contest will be held at conference. I made that amendment because it was going to be hybrid. Okay, district contest, hybrid. Okay, my amendment was at conference. I inserted the words at conference because I don't want any more of this watching videos crap. I want to see the people on stage, you know.
I agree.
At conference, you know. So yeah, I'm getting high fives from the longer term members. But so that was something, and that was important to know. And luckily we have a district director who knows how to run meetings. And I've seen district directors who don't know how to run meetings, and it's a nightmare, truly. So I hope that this has helped a little bit. Where can you find information that abstentions are counted as a no? Well, that would probably be, I'd have to look that up. Probably in Robert's Rules, I'm sure it is. I don't have my Robert's Rules book with me, but it's about yay thick. And it talks about everything. And it goes into great detail. So for instance, politicians know everything under the sun. I mean, they get into all this fancy procedural stuff. And oh wait, here we go. Who's finding something? Aaron, was that you?
No, I'm sharing the summary of everything I listened.
Oh, okay. Well, bless your heart. Thank you. Yeah, call the question means limit. Yeah, you not limit debate, you're stopping debate.
Okay.
Yeah, call the question. I'm ready to, the question is the motion. you know, what do we have before the body? So yeah, call the question is how it's phrased, but it just means I'm tired of this. I'm moving on, ready to do this. And not everybody might be ready to finish debate. They're not yet convinced one way or the other. So, all right, very good. Yep, you got it. It stops debate. Yeah. And here's a test. So if Barbara moves to call the question, does it need a second?
Yes.
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 And when we take a vote, what are we voting on? The original motion, or are we voting on stopping debate?
We're voting on stopping debate.
That's it. Okay. And don't let anybody tell you call the question means we go and vote on the motion. The point of Robert's rules is that everybody gets to have a voice and one person cannot run the assembly. So if I jump up and say, call the question, and we move directly to vote on the motion, and all the rest of you are not done getting information in the debate, I just ran the assembly. Does that make sense? Yes.
Totally away from what you're talking about. In the evaluation, there is
Mhm.
no place to put down
I
that it's.
know. I saw that. Yeah. Well, if y'all want to type in and go, Beth is like super awesome or something like that, you just go right ahead. And her horses are awful pretty. And I learned something about Secretariat that I didn't know before. All right, Rick, what do you want to say?
Yes, thank you. Somebody mentioned simple majority earlier. It is not in Robert's Rules of Order. It's what they meant to say is a majority in its simplest form.
Yes.
And if you're using aye and nay, that means you're having a roll call vote. Nay is not used otherwise. It's no. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Iona.
How do you address a person in an assembly, example, a deck meeting, that is speaking over the chair or just saying things, and they are just an attendee? They're not part of the voting
Oh,
group.
so they're not like a voting delegate?
Correct. They are just an
They
appointed.
need to sit there, be quiet and observe and smile.
Oh, but how do you address it as a person sitting
I'm
there
sorry, are
being
you, I'm sorry,
polite?
Iona, are you a voting delegate with us today?
Oh, but I'm not the chair, so
No, but if I were the chair, I would, and let's just say you're being disruptive and you're talking and you're making comments and I'm like, wait a minute, Iona, are you a voting delegate?
but if the chair is not recognizing
not.
it, and we are the
Again,
assembly.
I'm giving an example. This is how I would do it. And you would either say, well, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. If you say, well, no, I'm not a voting delegate. Well, Iona, I really appreciate your comments, but we need to, you know, you're really not allowed to address things of the business that we're doing because that's only voting delegates have that privilege. Then if your answer was, yes, I am a voting delegate, well, then could I ask you to please, let's limit this to the debate and the discussion time that we have so that it's not disrupting and we can all be on the same page. Is that what you're
Thank you.
talking about? When the chairperson, you have got to run this. It's when you run a meeting, you got to run a meeting. That's why with, this is great practice at Toastmasters, friends. If you can't run a meeting on time and you can't keep business going, this is the practice lab. This is where you learn this. So when you go out in your community and you're doing things at church or you're doing things in United Way or whatever you're doing and you're running things, you know how to do it with confidence and you control what's going on. Because it's not fair if I don't know how to control a group and there was all this side talking and stuff. It's not fair to you that now I'm going to turn around and ask you to vote on something that you're missing everything that you've just been hearing, right? So my job is to ensure that you are getting all the information and feel good about the work that you're doing. How about that? What time is it? Oh, we have
49.
1 minute. That's it. Well, we'll be done in just right here, but I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you. If you have the handout, hopefully you were able to download that. My email address is on there. If you want to ask another question or just anything that you want, then contact me there, and just understand that my last name is spelled Ramsay. If you do SEY, I don't get it, and then you think I'm a terrible person being rude. I'm not. Okay, but thank you so very much. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you for your questions and your interaction. You're awesome. Does anybody feel a little better? A little
Yes.
better than you did 45 minutes ago? Okay, excellent. Well, then I did my job. Thank y'all so much. Go back to the main room and enjoy our final speaker. Thank y'all.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Beth, do you teach these
Hi,
workshops?
Yeah.
I just wanted to follow up on the discussion. So is it only the chairperson or presiding officer that can make the comments or questions that moderate a discussion? That's
It's
what
only
I
the
was
person,
wanting.
whoever's running the meeting. That's the person
Okay.
who, you're the one in control. Yeah.
And how does the audience member tell the chair or politely let the chair know that the person's not part of the assembly is making comments? That was the point.
Point of order.
Point of order. Okay.
We are
Okay.
out of order with people who are not voting delegates in
Oh,
the
thank you.
discussion.
And then you call the sergeant at arms.
Yeah, there you go, Stephanie. Then you call the sergeant at arms and go, listen, Cynthia is being terribly disruptive. You've got to get her out of here.
So Beth, the proper way would be to say, Madam or Mr. Chair, a
Mhm.
point of order. There
Yes.
are non-voting delegates making comments.
Yeah, so what'll happen is, let's just say, Stephanie, I'm gonna pick on you. Let's say Stephanie's doing that. She's, making all these interjections and stuff. And maybe, I know you want to you stand and just say point of order and you wait. Because what that does is, as the chair, it gets my attention. But you wait for me to recognize you, and I'll say, Iona, yes, ma'am. And then you'll say, I don't know if Stephanie, or whatever, I don't know if Stephanie is a voting delegate or not. Stephanie, are you a voting delegate? And if she says no, then it's like, Stephanie, appreciate your conversation. However, this is only open to those who have a vote, who are doing the business. Yeah, so point of order is the tool that you would use. All right, there you go. All right, love. Thank you.
Thank you. That was
Thank you
In the
excellent.
room
Thank you.
now.
All righty,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Vicky, for the suggestion, and thank you, Felicia, for the quick action. See, it's like you think about it, we're already on it. Right? That's the collective wisdom of this group. We were talking, while some of you were in your sessions, there was conversation with a couple of people waiting for the next one. And I was saying how magic it is when we come together and how we can share each other, tap into each other's just wisdom and experiences, and how much information and knowledge is available within our groups, because we all bring something to the table. I am super excited that Pat was able to share her vision with us this morning. Beth is getting some great reviews. Awesome. Thank you. So make sure that you fill out the evaluation. But I'm so happy that Pat shared with her some of those elements that become part of culture, club culture, right? Because each of us has a direct impact on what that club culture is like. And when she said that we can bring something and share with one another, I think that there was so much power, right? Because I know many of you have served in your roles or in an officer role for years. Thank you, Barbara. We will take note of that as well. Felicia, one more tweak to the form, if you're still there.
Thank you.
So yes, so many of you have served. Hearts going around. I love that. But we know many of you have served in officer role for years and years, and we appreciate tremendously your commitment to your office, to your club, and of course to our district. We can always learn something, and there's just something amazing that happens when we come together and we share those experiences. I know some of you are officers in this district, in other districts, so how was and when we can share those best practices so that we can continue to elevate our experience and that of those around us. We have a few minutes to go. Felicia, do you have any comments, announcements? Or Vicky?
Well, I would like to say thank you so much for this session, and I hope that all of you still have those other 2 sessions for TLI on your calendar, because there are going to be some great opportunities to add to your education, your knowledge, to learn from other Toastmasters, and just expand your expertise. So don't take those dates off, even if you have fulfilled your requirement as a club officer. You still want to enhance your education and skills in your whole Toastmasters experience.
Hopefully you do have those dates on your calendar, but we do have 2 more sessions jam-packed with information and exciting presentations, including International President Richard Peck and the immediate past International President Matt Kinsey. So those 2 amazing speakers will be with us on the 26th and TLI Express on August the 30th. Remember, look around, and if there is any of your club